Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Jessie Haas. I am the National Director of Programs at Pet Partners. I'm really hoping that folks are able to see and hear me. If you are, please go ahead and type in the comments where you're from, what kind of animal you have. I'm actually not interested necessarily in breed, but what kind of animal you have. Dog, cat, horse, whatever it might be. Just so I know folks are there and so I can kind of get to know who's joining me. Hey, Alex from Reno. Alex has 2 dogs. Awesome. So I know Alex is here. I'm hoping a few others are going to join in. Hi, Kendra from Fargo. You have a dog. That's great. Thanks for joining us, Kendra. Again, I'll say my name for those who are joining now. I'm Jessie Haas. I'm the National Director of Programs for Pet Partners, and we are going to be talking tonight about volunteering with your pet. This is sort of our Pet Partners 101 session. It's an opportunity for me to share with you all a little bit about Pet Partners, what it takes to be a team, how you go through the process of becoming a Pet Partners team, and of course, lots of time for questions. We keep it pretty casual. Great. I see some more folks. Ann, Dale, Caro, Jonathan, Nicole, Julia, Mary. Great. So I'm being heard. That's awesome. I'm asking folks to share where they're from and what kind of animal they have. The other thing I'd love to know before we get started is just to get a sense from you all where you're at in the process. So think of things in terms of joining Pet Partners on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being, I barely know anything. I just found out about this live. I'm curious only. And 10 being like, I've almost joined. I'm almost done. And 5 being somewhere in the middle. Where are you at on that scale? So I know who I'm chatting with and sort of how to customize some of the information today. All right, Diane's a 1. So she's coming in with fresh eyes, not much information. Hopefully I can help with that. Again, scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I know nothing about Pet Partners, 10 being I am about to join, I'm almost there, 5 being I'm interested, but I need more information. Where are you at? All right, lots of 1s. Okay, so I'll keep it pretty basic for you folks. But then we've got some others who almost joined, but unfortunately had to cancel due to COVID. So we'll actually talk a little bit about that tonight too. All right, thank you for your input. Again, I'm Jessie Haas. I'm the National Director of Programs at Pet Partners. This discussion tonight is really designed to orient you to the Pet Partners Therapy Program as a way of volunteering in the community with your pet. I want to give you a little bit of information about Pet Partners to start, then we'll talk about the COVID situation, and then we'll get into more details. So Pet Partners is actually a national volunteer organization. We have approximately 10,000 teams, and when I say team, I mean a person with their animal making up a team together. We have about 10,000 teams in all 50 states, and we actually operate in about 10 other countries with a handful of volunteers and growing outside of the United States as well. At our core, our mission is to improve human health and well-being through the human-animal bond. Pet Partners' reputation is really the gold standard of the therapy animal world, and that gold standard really comes from the high standards that we set for both our animals and our handlers. And you're going to hear that a lot tonight, that we focus on not only your animal's suitability for this volunteerism, but you as the human, what you can do to be safe and effective in this role. So tonight you'll learn about these requirements as well as what you need to do to actually complete that registration and officially become a Pet Partners team. I do want to address the COVID-19 situation, the pandemic, because I'm sure that's top of mind for all of you, as it is for me as I go through my daily life and make different decisions. Like many organizations and businesses, Pet Partners, of course, has had to pivot and adjust, and things aren't as normal, but we are still out there delivering on our mission. So the first question I always get is, are teams volunteering? Are people going out with their pets into their communities? And the answer is yes. In some cases, it looks normal. In other cases, it's kind of done in an alternative way. So right now, a lot of our teams are doing outdoor visits. For example, they might be doing a parade around the parking lot or around the perimeter of a facility such as a nursing home or a retirement community. We also have a lot of teams that are doing window visits where they actually are approaching the windows to visit individual patients via the window. And they've done some really neat things with their animals in terms of making sure that it's still an engaging opportunity. And of course, these are something that folks who are in a healthcare facility are really looking forward to. We also have a lot of teams doing virtual visits right now. So I know, especially as more schools have gone to distance learning or all remote learning, many of our teams are being invited into these virtual classrooms, and the students are reading to the animals or visiting with the animals within their classroom, their virtual classroom. So our mission is still being delivered. Teams are still active. It may just look a little bit different. Having said that, our operations have certainly been impacted by COVID. And as I go through some of those operations tonight and what it looks like to become a team, I will mention as we go along what those adjustments have been. And I think what I'd like to say as I wrap up this pandemic conversation is just that we know that as things return to normal, there is going to be more need than ever for our teams out in communities. Pre-pandemic, we sometimes didn't have enough teams for the number of people who wanted to have visits from our teams or facilities that wanted to have visits. And I think after COVID-19, after some of this extended isolation for people and all the difficulties we've all experienced over the past 9 months, people are going to want Pet Partners teams. So if you are considering becoming a team, and if what I say tonight kind of inspires you, you absolutely can start the process now and absolutely take important steps so that when you are able to visit, you can do so kind of hitting the ground running. So that's all I'll say. I'm just looking at the comments here. There's some questions about requirements here, which I'm going to get to, but keep the questions coming in and I'll make sure I check every once in a while. And then of course, at the end, I'll make sure I hit all the questions that I wasn't able to get to. So let's talk a little bit about what a therapy animal visit is, what it looks like, and where it takes place. So Pet Partners teams visit in a variety of locations with a wide range of client types. So some examples of places where our teams visit, of course, include hospitals and other healthcare-related facilities like rehabilitation centers. We also have a lot of teams visiting in retirement and nursing homes. We have teams visiting in group homes, hospice, schools, libraries, workplaces, airports. We also have teams who visit within the judicial system or the criminal justice system. So teams do a wide variety of things. And all of these settings can be really rewarding, but the overarching consideration in terms of what setting you may end up volunteering in is what really is the best match for you and your animal. And this is a central theme at Pet Partners you're going to hear over and over again if you keep working with us throughout this is you always need to be your animal's best advocate. Your job as a handler is to set everybody up for success, including the client or patient or student you may be visiting, but also to set your animal up for success. And part of that is choosing the right setting for your animal. In terms of what visits look like, a lot of our visits kind of feel social in nature. They are a chance to make conversation, to cheer somebody up, to reduce their stress or provide a welcome distraction. Oftentimes our teams reduce isolation for many people who may not otherwise have visitors or interactions. These types of social visits happen in a variety of settings, from hospitals and retirement communities, of course, to airports and even places like dentist offices. Even colleges are embracing stress relief events during finals weeks, where teams are invited to provide kind of some study breaks. So those are sort of your social/stress relief type visits. Other types of visits are more formally therapeutic in nature, where our teams might be invited to work together with a professional in a therapeutic setting. So I'll just give an example. There might be a physical therapist working at a rehabilitation center. They might invite one of our volunteer teams to come and work with them. The professional, of course, is providing the structure and the expertise. You or the volunteer as the handler is providing the animal as part of the process. And maybe in one of these sessions, the physical therapist has his or her client brush your dog. And that's something, of course, your dog enjoys, but it's also something that helps that person practice whatever physical movements they may need to do. Reading programs or literacy-based visits are another style of visit I want to call out before moving on because they are very, very popular. They happen at libraries and schools. As you can imagine, many children are motivated to learn to read or to practice reading if they're able to do it with an animal. And of course, an animal can feel less judgmental than reading in front of other people. So those are some of the visits I wanted to mention, or types of visits. There are, again, other types of visits, but those are some of the most common that you'll see. One more thing before I stop and check questions in the comments box. Another question we always get is sort of, okay, I understand what a therapy animal visit looks like and what I'll do, but what's the commitment? How often do I need to do this? How long do I need to do this? And really, it's up to you. Volunteers at Pet Partners are empowered to kind of set up the volunteer journey in the way that they want to. So you can select the type of facility you want to visit at. You can decide how often you visit. Our one rule is you can't visit more than 2 hours a day because that just gets to be very tiring and stressful for the animal in most cases. So that's just your general rule. But beyond that, you can decide if you want to visit once a week. Maybe you want to visit once a month. Maybe you just want to choose one facility where you visit. Other teams will choose a couple of different visits and they'll rotate around, a couple of different facilities and they'll rotate around. So it's really in your hands as the volunteer how you want to set up your visits. I'm going to just go over and scroll real quick and check the comment box. So yeah, some people, of course, are talking about how right now you really can't do anything or go anywhere. And I'm assuming that comment's made sort of in terms of what does that mean for volunteering? Of course, we do have some volunteers in that situation right now where they aren't visiting, but your registration is good for 2 years. So even teams who aren't visiting right now, within their registration period with their animal, and by the way, you can renew that. So it's renewable every 2 years. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. People were visiting before this, and they'll certainly return to visiting afterwards. People who truly don't feel comfortable going anywhere, that's totally fine. Pet Partners empowers, again, volunteers to make the volunteering decisions for themselves that work best for them. So if somebody really doesn't want to go anywhere, cannot go anywhere because of their personal situation, that's no problem. You don't have to volunteer for whatever period of time. We don't have like a minimum requirement that you have to keep up on in order to maintain your status with Pet Partners. Other teams, like I said, are doing those virtual visits. They're doing drive-by visits, window visits. I think in the comments, somebody already said, yeah, Sandy, I see that, did a drive-by visit at a community hospital for staff. So just looking at the comments again and seeing if I'm missing anything. Oh, yeah, I see somebody asked about species, and I'm so sorry. I meant to mention that at the beginning because I asked everybody what kind of animal they had, and I think everybody at that time had mentioned dogs. So I didn't mention the fact that we actually welcome 8 other species. My colleague Julia is managing the comments. She already put cats in there, but she can also go ahead and type in the other species, which I'll also list. Dogs, cats, horses, rabbits, guinea pigs, llamas, and alpacas, pigs, birds, and rats. So dogs make up 94% of the animals involved in our program, but we absolutely welcome and look forward to all of those other species because they all have elements of their nature that make them wonderful for the human-animal bond. And there are some situations where dogs just aren't appropriate. There might be clients or patients or students who are allergic or who are fearful of animals, and in those cases, some of these other animals can be, just a wonderful choice. So Julia, I know I just read through those really fast. If you can get to putting them in the comments, that would be great. So Ellen, I do see your question about how does the process start, training, qualifications. I'm getting to that right now, actually. We're going to talk about eligibility first, meaning like what's the basics that you need to have before you can pursue this. And then we'll talk about training and the process and getting yourself prepared. So animals must be at least 1 year old, with the exception of pocket pets. Pocket pets being our rabbits, guinea pigs, and rats. They need to be at least 6 months old. But for all of the canine owners out there, your animal needs to be 1 year old. Birds must have lived in the owner's home for at least 1 year. All other species must have lived with the owner for at least 6 months. So if you are somebody who has recently adopted an animal during the pandemic, which is just a wonderful thing that so many people have been doing, you do need to make sure that the animal has been in your home for at least 6 months. There are parts of the process that you can pursue before you hit these benchmarks. You just cannot complete it until your animal has been with you for 6 months, or you cannot complete it until your animal is 1 year of age. All animals must be reliably house trained. Animals must be on a leash at all times when they visit and also during our evaluation process, which I'll speak about. So that means your animal needs to be really well leash trained. Even our smaller animals need to be on a leash. I heard that I froze. I'm hoping I'm back. If people could give me a heads up in the comments that I am back to normal, that would be great. Okay, looks like I'm back. Awesome. Okay. So I don't know exactly when I froze. I was going through eligibility requirements. I talked about age. I'll go through these really briefly. Animal must, in general, be 1 year of age, unless if it's one of our pocket pets. Animals must have lived in your home for at least 6 months. We want animals to be in generally good health. Reach out to us if your animal has any prescription medications or long-term health issues. We'll talk through it. But we do welcome animals who have disabilities. So animals who may be tripods or may have hearing or sight issues, we do welcome those animals as long as they can remain comfortable performing a visit. All right, so I'm back. That was the eligibility. Hit me in the comments if the eligibility requirements cut off so much that you couldn't understand what I was saying. But I'm going to move on here to what makes a successful animal. So your animal's the right age, it's lived with you the right amount of time, that's great. But what actually makes a successful therapy animal? The biggest thing that I always point out is that a successful therapy animal needs to not merely tolerate interactions with people, they need to enjoy interactions with people. And more specifically, they need to enjoy interactions with a wide variety of strangers. So lots of animals love interactions from their family or from the people in their immediate neighborhood. But when they are put in a situation where there's a lot of strangers, they might kind of revert to merely tolerating that interaction. We really want to look for that enjoyment, and that's something you can watch for in your animal when you introduce them to new people. Of course, they need to be people-oriented and sociable. And all animals need to have, species-specific basic obedience. And I'd like to highlight, too, that it isn't just about having your animal be able to sit down, stay calm. That's for dogs. They do need to be able to do that. But we are looking for animals who can remain obedient even when distracted. Because if your dogs are like mine, my dog does great following obedience at home or in settings she knows, but you get her someplace where she's excited, and it's harder to get her to follow some of those commands. So as you're preparing for this and considering if this is the right fit for you, you want to make sure that you practice some of those basic obedience skills, even in situations that are exciting or distracting for your animal. There was one other thing I wanted to say about that. Oh, but we are not looking for animals that would like win an obedience trial or anything like that. We're looking for good basic obedience. And of course, we want a calm disposition in the animal as well. That doesn't mean that your animal can't wag its tail excitedly seeing somebody or perk up. It simply means that they have a calm kind of center where they aren't likely to get overly excited by external factors, that they wouldn't jump or vocalize in excitement. So you're looking for an animal that has sort of a calm center that it can return to during visits. I said at the very top of this discussion, if you were here then, that Pet Partners focuses very much on the human as well. So let's talk about what makes a successful handler. Just like your animal, you need to be willing to interact with and enjoy interaction with a wide variety of people. But the most important thing I want to share is that we are looking for somebody who advocates for their animal, who sets good boundaries for the animal. And what I mean by that is when your animal is having interactions with other people, that you can help guide people to have appropriate interactions in a way that your animal likes and enjoys. So saying things like, you know what, my animal doesn't really like that. Could you try petting him or her here? Or you know what, that's too many people crowding around my animal. Let's do this one at a time. We're really, again, looking for somebody who can advocate for their animal and set good boundaries, because your number one job as a handler is not necessarily to make the client or patient happy. Of course, that's what we hope is the outcome. But your number one job is to be the guardian of your animal and to keep your animal safe, and not only keep him or her safe, but make sure that the interactions with clients are safe as well. That's what we're always looking for in handlers, and it's something that you are evaluated on. And I'll talk about that when we get to the evaluation in just a moment. I'm going to pop over to the comments and just see if anything is coming in. So, Mary, great question. Can handlers start training before the pet is 1 year old? Absolutely, you can begin training. And as we go through the steps here, I'll talk through some other things you can do before the animal hits that 1 year birthday. And you asked a great question here about whether or not there's somewhere where you can see species-specific obedience. So when you start an account with Pet Partners, which Julia can hopefully drop in a URL into the comments that shows you where to go to start an account. You can start an account even if you end up not becoming a volunteer with us. It's free for anybody. And when you have an account, once you're logged in, you'll see a nice home page with lots of buttons to click. The one I want to call your attention to is called Resources. And if you click that and search by your species, so if you type in cat, I think that's what you said, and you have a cat, you will get lots of information about preparing your cat for an evaluation or things to consider for your cat. We call them species packets, where you can read about what we're looking for in each of the species. So those resources are available to you at the outset. You don't have to become a volunteer in order to get that information. All right, let's talk about the steps here, since I know people are anxious to hear that. So first is to create that volunteer center account. That's the best thing you can do right off the bat to familiarize yourself with Pet Partners and what the volunteer journey looks like. Next, you can explore around, like I just said. You can look at resources and whatever else you might want to do. But if you want to actually start the process, you'll click on My Registrations, and that's where you can start a team registration. Again, a team is 1 human, 1 animal. If you happen to have another animal you're going to register with, that becomes a second team. It's not 1 team of 3 bodies. It's you with 1 animal is team A, you with the other animal is team B. Once you begin a team registration, you'll see a really handy checkbox of all of the steps that you need to complete. Some of those steps are super basic. It's just biographical information. Where do you live? How old is your pet? What kind of animal is it? What's its breed, if appropriate? And that stuff's all pretty easy, so I'm not going to spend time there. But there are 3 more complex steps I do want to talk about. The first is handler training. So people are asking, what kind of training do you have to go through? Pet Partners does not require any specific training for the animal. That is up to you as its owner to decide how to do that. Some people choose to enroll in a therapy animal class within their community. Lots of training schools offer those. Other people choose just to train at home. Once they kind of find out what's needed and what's in the evaluation and what a visit's like, they can do the training just fine at home. So that's really up to you. What we do require is handler training. We emphasize the human end of the leash and the training required there. We do have a handler's course that you can take online, or you can take the in-person version, which is called a handler workshop. Obviously, right now, very few workshops are available. So for those of you who are anxious to get started, you're going to want to go ahead and choose that online option. Even post-pandemic, for a lot of people, that's the more convenient option. It's great. You can come and go from it. So if you want to do an hour today and 20 minutes tomorrow and a half an hour the following day, you can do that. It's also available to you in your account, so that if you want to come back to it 3 or 4 months from now and kind of refresh yourself, you can do that. In the handler training, you will find out more specifically about what happens in an evaluation and how visits occur. And then that's where you can decide how you want to train your animal. The reason we don't require any specific training is because we are species inclusive. So if we required everybody to get a certain training in person at a local training facility, that really wouldn't be fair to our rabbit handlers, for example, or our rat handlers who don't have that kind of training available. So that's a little bit about training. I'm going to pause and take a look at comments. Somebody's asking here about an animal being a mix. That's totally fine. We do not discriminate in terms of breeds, so we don't have any breed specifics that we need. Somebody asked here about placing teams with a particular volunteer opportunity. So let me address that before we keep going through these other steps. A few minutes ago, I talked about the fact that we really empower volunteers to determine their own journey. And part of that is you get to decide where you volunteer. And so you are able to reach out to facilities. You can tell them, I have been Pet Partners evaluated, I'm Pet Partners registered, I carry insurance through Pet Partners. I would like to come visit your facility, and you can make the approach yourself. You'll find also that, especially if you live in a populated area, not necessarily big cities, but even towns, there already are a lot of facilities who have Pet Partners teams. Alternatively, in your volunteer center account, which I just mentioned, once you have input your information showing your zip code, our website will also populate for you all the facilities in your area who are currently asking for visits, and you can connect with them online. So there's lots of different options for getting placed with a volunteer opportunity. All right, so I'm going to go back to steps. So remember, start a volunteer center account, enter all your biographical information. Once you do that and begin a registration, you'll see all your steps. One of those steps is handler training, which we just talked about. The next is animal health screening form. That is basically something your veterinarian will fill out, attesting to the fact that your animal is healthy and able to visit. This is also where we will get information about medications that they may be on. So take a look at that. It's nothing your veterinarian will be surprised to see. It's pretty basic information. But as part of our commitment to animal welfare, we want to make sure that these animals receive regular health care from a veterinarian. The other big step is the evaluation. So every single Pet Partners team or prospective team needs to come in front of a licensed team evaluator. We have licensed team evaluators all over the country. Evaluations are individual sessions. That means just you as a team with an evaluator. And they typically last about 45 minutes tops, and they resemble a role play. So we try to set up our evaluation in such a way that it feels and looks like the experience that you might have on an actual therapy animal visit. As a team, you will be tested on your basic skills, such as obedience. So sit, down, stay, come when called, some of those basics. And you will also be assessed on your team's aptitude for therapy work by simulating common scenarios encountered during visits. So during the aptitude portion of the evaluation, you will encounter somebody walking by you and your animal with a walker or a wheelchair or another medical device. You will also experience walking through a hallway that's crowded, where there's multiple people crossing in front of and behind of you. And we're testing that because those are the kinds of things that you're going to see on a therapy animal visit. During the team evaluation, we'll not only be watching your animal for comfort with these scenarios, we're also going to be looking for how well the handler interprets and manages your animal's behavior during the evaluation. We're looking for you to advocate for your animal and to recognize, ooh, he didn't like that loud noise back there, which is okay. An animal doesn't have to like everything that happens in an evaluation, but how do you as a handler recognize that and then provide a soothing touch or eye contact with your animal? Anything to let your animal know, hey, I'm here, I know you didn't like that, and help your animal recover from the situation that may have caused them some concern. So you receive a score, and that score is 50% the animal, 50% the handler. So again, back to Pet Partners' emphasis on that human end of the leash. I think I'll take a peek again. There are some folks on here who are already handlers, experienced handlers. So I would encourage you, as I'm talking a little bit more and I'm about to wrap up, but those of you who are experienced, maybe put some comments in about your evaluation experience. I know it can be a stressful thing for you as the human. It's very nerve-wracking, but what helped you prepare for that evaluation or helped you kind of approach it with a more positive or a calmer attitude? And how did you not let the nerves get the best of you? Kendra asked a question here about, are you able to give treats to the pets during events? So I'm not 100% sure what you mean by events. If you mean during the evaluation, no, you as the handler cannot have treats on your person during the evaluation. Your animal needs to follow your commands and keep close to you without the inducement of treats. Having said that, there is one exercise at the end where the evaluator will test your animal's ability to maintain composure in the presence of food. Not all animals can, especially some of the Labrador retrievers out there, if you've ever seen them around a treat. And they're also going to look for, if you want your animal to receive the treat, they're going to look that the animal takes the treat gently. You as a handler get to decide whether or not you want your animal to take a treat during that exercise. If you say, yes, I want them to take a treat during the exercise, and you pass that exercise, then you can offer treats when you're on a visit, or you can allow clients or patients to offer them a treat on a visit. If you say, nope, I don't want my animal to have a treat, if you say that during the evaluation, that means when you're out on visits, you cannot give your animal treats, you cannot allow anybody else to give them treats. So it's the one exercise where there's quite a bit of choice for you as a handler to determine what's best for your pet. Hope that answers your question. All right. Wrapping up here, and then I'll hang around for as many questions as people have. There are a couple of key benefits to being registered with Pet Partners. The first is that we do provide liability insurance to every team that holds an active registration with Pet Partners. Active registration means that 2-year period where you've met your requirements and you get the 24 months of registration after it. We do require that every team renews every 2 years. So you renew your registration. You do not need to retake the course, but you do need to submit a veterinarian form, and you do need to be reevaluated every 24 months. And that is really important for us because as animals age, especially, or go through any sort of life change, they may grow less and less apt for this work or for this volunteerism. And so we want to make sure that we're getting eyes on an animal every couple of years. And we also want to, of course, check in with the handler every couple of years as well. But as long as you do that renewal, you have continual liability insurance from Pet Partners. The other key benefit is that you have access to continuing education and resources. Somebody already mentioned in the comments our Canine Body Language course. That is a course we put together that is all about recognizing the signals your animal is giving through its body language and recognizing the stress that they experience, because all dogs experience stress. Even our most experienced therapy animals who love this work, they experience stress on visits. And as handlers, we want to be able to recognize that. That course right now is free for all existing volunteers. And that is a professionally done, really helpful course. And that is one of the benefits that you receive. We also do really regular webinars with our handlers where we get staff in front of you, or we get our volunteer leaders in front of you talking about a certain topic, helping you learn more, become a better handler. And then, of course, we have tons of resources available within our resource library, within your Volunteer Center account, that are available to you now as a prospective volunteer, but also available to you once you become a registered volunteer. I just gave a lot of information and went through a lot of it fast. So I'm going to hang around for questions, comments, things that haven't been addressed. So Hillary has a great question here. If 2 people want to be handlers for the same pet, will they need to do both of the steps individually with each pet? So yes, yes, you do. So each pet plus human makes a team. So if your dog's name is Fluffy and you're Jane, Fluffy and Jane make one team. And if your partner is John, Fluffy and John also make one team. So John and Fluffy need to go through the evaluation. Jane and Fluffy need to go through the evaluation. Now, of course, your health screening form, you only have to do that once, and it can be uploaded to both team registrations, right? But both Jane and John need to take the handler course. So in many ways, it's completely separate. There are a few places where you can use the same information. And it does happen sometimes that Fluffy and Jane will pass the evaluation, but Fluffy and John will not. Because remember, 50% of your score is based on the human and 50% is on the animal. So hope that answers your question. Do I need the veterinarian form for the team evaluation? That's a good question. No, that is submitted to us as a Pet Partners staff. So you do not need to bring that to the evaluation. Good question. That is for your relationship with us. There is a form that you will bring to the evaluation that I haven't mentioned yet, and it's called a handler's questionnaire. And that's something you do provide to the evaluator. And in that questionnaire, you'll be able to tell them certain things. Like, let's say your animal doesn't hear well. You would be able to communicate that to the evaluator in writing in the questionnaire, so they know that you might be doing hand signals instead of verbal signals. So you do have the opportunity to share things about your animal with the evaluator prior to the evaluation, but it does not necessarily come via that vet form. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll scroll up and see if I've missed any other questions. There were a lot coming in. I'm looking for... Okay, Julia's answering a lot of questions by typing, so maybe I don't have to. Somebody did ask if you need to evaluate even if you have already done so with CGC or Canine Good Citizen. Yes, our evaluation is completely separate. We don't accept CGC as a substitute. Having said that, I do know a lot of people do CGC, and that can be a wonderful preparation for folks. But it's not a stand-in for our evaluation with our evaluators. Oh, I should mention, I meant to say this about the evaluations and the pandemic right now. So we are allowing team evaluations to happen. There are certain precautions, such as masks are required. And we've made adjustments to a few of the exercises, such as like there's one where the evaluator would shake hands with the handler. That's no longer happening. But any team evaluator who does not feel comfortable evaluating right now, or if it goes against any local guidelines around gathering size, nobody is required to evaluate, meaning no evaluator is required to hold an evaluation, which means there are not many evaluations on the calendar right now for new teams. But we do expect that will start to change, especially as this year goes on, that more and more evaluations will come online. But I do want to encourage you again to consider the fact that you can do your handler course. You can brush up on your obedience. Most of you can visit your vet, or if you recently visited your vet, in some cases you just need to give them the form and they'll complete it based on your last visit. There are so many things you can do now so that when evaluations come online more, you'll be able to go right away and do it. There are some on the calendar in certain parts of the country, but they are much fewer than we're used to seeing. So I should mention that. So yes, Christina, there will be a recording. You just asked that. This will be available on the Facebook page after this is done. All right. I don't see very many questions coming in. So I am going to go ahead and log off. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, bearing with the technical difficulties and all of the information I threw at you. Please contact us, reach out to us, ask questions. We are here to help. We know this is an odd time to be starting a volunteer journey, but it's possible, and we're here to really guide you through every step of the way. So contact us. I'm sorry. Christina's asking about missed questions. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing them. But it looks like Julia's responding in the comments. So I was about to wrap that up, but now there's a whole bunch of stuff coming in. So I'm going to hang. Those of you who already got the information and want to say bye, please feel free to do so. But I'm going to take a peek at these coming in. Christina, you asked about where to find good local classes. So we don't keep a list of recommended local classes because, of course, we are not experts on training facilities in every geographic region. So I can't recommend any, unfortunately, but I'm sure there are places in your community where you can find those recommendations. We do not require specific training for your animal. We leave it up to the handler to determine what's best for them. Instead, we focus on training the handler, the human end of the leash. So that's the answer to that question. Okay. I think that's it. So now I am really going to say goodbye and say thank you. Everybody have a wonderful evening wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. Good night.